Clark Griffith, Administrator of the Wayne County Health Department. I am proud that the Health Department is undertaking a project to better serve the members of our community. This functional needs registry will be an excellent planning tool for all emergency events or situations.
Wayne County, we feel it's extremely important that we account for all of our citizens, including those who have special circumstances that need additional planning. There are many different needs that don't fit into the typical emergency plans, things like blindness or physical disability or hard of hearing or cognitive disabilities. Those are things that we typically we fail in trying to plan for and trying to help others plan for those. So what we would like to do as planners, we would like to combat that and actually come up with a better plan to include all of our citizens in our special needs planning.
Other areas that were not necessarily usually recognized are the isolation issue. Very rural community, your neighbor may be 3-4 miles away down the road. That may be the closest person that can contact you. Lack of transportation is a big deal. A lot of elderly depend on someone else to transport them around, and if they can't get there, if they don't know there's an emergency, that can play a big part. And language barrier. Those who have limited English speaking abilities, we find it hard to communicate with those as well. That is why we want to partner with the faith-based community. With over 90 churches in the county, we would expect that they know many of the needs of their congregation. Many residents are connected to a church in some manner, and this is a great starting point.
The faith-based community makes a good partner with public health institutions because the faith community has already a built-in sense of trust. And for people who may have trust issues, they already have a frame of reference for the church. Even if they don't attend possibly a church regularly, most people hold the clergy or the church in high regard and understand that the church is there to protect them, the church is there to minister to them. And so, whereas they might not trust someone else, they can come in and they know that the church is there for their best interest. The faith-based community and the public health communities are good partners, even though they might not think so. They both have the same goals in mind. They both are looking for people to have justice. They're looking for people to be able to be served. And in Amos it says, "But let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream." Those are the same goals that we have. And the faith-based community needs to work with the public health community because they are trusted. You already have an inroad there. They know that churches are there to care for them. And so when you bring in then the public health, then they begin to trust public health. If the church trusts public health, then they will. And it works together so that we can minister together to meet the needs of the whole person.
Most people are familiar with the cholera outbreak in London in 1854. And John Snow was the physician who basically studied that. He actually became the father of epidemiology through his work in that outbreak. And what he did was he was able to map the locations of the people who were getting sick with cholera and be able to trace that back and try and find the common denominator of what was causing them to be sick. And it turns out that it all came back to a water pump that was being used in the middle of the town. That most of the disease and the people that were diseased were using this pump. And he was able to figure that out through talking with people. But he had difficulty with that, and what most people don't realize is that Reverend Henry Whitehead, who was the parish priest, wanting to take care of his parishioners, went into their homes and actually with his influence over his parishioners, they were actually able to solve this mystery.
We should care because God cares. We know that God cares from reading in the book of Matthew where he says, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And then he goes on to say that you should love your neighbor as yourself. So we know that God cares about the whole person, and we know that God cares about us caring for the whole person. And that is where the faith-based organizations need to work with the health departments and other health organizations as a whole, because we know that the health department is more versed in taking care of physical needs, and so we need to partner with them so that we can take care of the needs of the whole person.
The type of information we're looking for that we will collect primarily will be the demographics, the age, their name, address, emergency contact, etc. The key information we need is what type of functional need identification. They're like blindness, deaf, hard of hearing, physical disability, special medical needs like oxygen, ventilators, etc. And the ones people don't really necessarily recognize are like isolation. And our county is very isolated. Someone who lives in the rural part of the county, their closest neighbors may be miles apart.
Think about the military motto of leave no man behind. As county or group of neighbors and friends, we should have that same mentality. We should want to make sure that no one's left out of planning for emergencies, so that when an actual emergency comes, that everybody is accounted for, and that we do make sure that we're taking care of each other.
I think it's important for us to remember, if we look at the book of John, it says, "A new commandment I give you, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you are also to love one another." Being a part of this needs registry indicates that we have love for our neighbor. It indicates that we have love for those that are around us. And we need to work together in order to better serve our whole community, those people that are isolated, those people that just have different needs from someone else. We need to be able to partner together so that we can show love in a way that is tangible and a way that serves their needs. Another way that I would encourage churches, or the reason that I would encourage churches and public health to work together, is that it tells us in Galatians, do not grow weary of doing good. And even though this might be a difficult thing to get people to trust us, to get people to see the need for this, we need to not grow weary in doing good. And we know that God will supply all our needs, but God will also bless what we are doing for other people.
We want to account for all of our Wayne County citizens during an emergency, including those who are in wheelchairs or blind or have cognitive disabilities, or somebody even who's isolated out in the middle of nowhere with no close neighbors. Those are the people that we want to make sure that we include, that we don't leave behind. So while each person is ultimately responsible for their own preparation, we need to make sure that they have all the tools that they need to be able to plan. And this registry is designed so that it will allow us to identify the people that need help and then be able to then go out and help them plan. And this should move us closer to ensuring that we leave no one behind when disaster strikes.